Today is not about defending wine, but it is about reconnecting it. This roundtable is unique because it brings together science, markets, innovation, and digital ecosystem.
That's the innovation we need to bring to the wine industry, making more questions, what we can do more, what we can engage in more context, what we can bring meaning to the wine industry again. Because just education is not working, because if you're working, we have plenty of people drinking wine, because that is something we do and they do a lot. So what is the next?
We always see the words like premium, luxury, but terroir, tradition, family-owned winery for a few decades, it's always the same thing. Be innovative, be proactive.
Technical language talks to technical experts, but not to consumers. Nobody knows what, minerality or tannins are. Not everyone wants to be expert in blind tasting.
What the traditional wine world lacks isn't expertise, it's understanding today's consumers. Learning doesn't need to be systematic, but useful. Desire isn't about aspiring to be elite, but fitting my life. Trust doesn't come from titles, but people like me.
Independently if it's Gen Z or Gen X or Gen whatever, we are in Gen T, the generation of transition. So
nowadays in China, people no longer believe in Master of Wine, 100 points, Robert Parker. They no longer believe in these authorities anymore.
I'm really confident this sector is gaining more and more women, because I have the strong feeling that women are more customer orientated.
Many challenges in wine today are not about quality, but about the system. So, welcome to our first global roundtable by Ladies in Wine and Rethinking the Wine Industry. I'm Natalie Malbran, and I will be your host today. Wine has never lacked quality. What is lacked today is translation. For centuries, wine has been built on expertise, heritage, technique, and excellence. And yet, across continents and generations, fewer people feel that wine truly speaks their language. This is not because wine has lost its value, but because the way it is explained, experienced, and shared has not always evolved with people it seeks to connect. Today is not about defending wine, but it is about reconnecting it. This roundtable is unique because it brings together science, markets, innovation, and digital ecosystem, not from one country, one generation, or one discipline, but across continents, cultures, and lived experience. Today, we are crossing sensory science and human emotions, traditional markets and digital first cultures, Europe, Asia, Australia, and the Americas, legacy, knowledge, the future signals. This is not a debate about who is right, it is a collective exploration of how wine can become meaningful again, emotionally, culturally, and socially. Welcome to this conversation about the future of wine, not as a product, but as a shared experience as a human. I am going to make a brief introduction about our panelists. I will start with Isabelle Lechaffre. She is a PhD scientist specialized in sensory science and consumer perception, owner of the Aroma Wheel and Vino Academy. She helped us understand how people actually experience wine, how taste, emotion, and memory work together. Sophie Liu, she is a renowned wine KOL in China. She works at the intersection of wine, digital platforms, and culture. She understands how new generations discover and connect with wine today. Virginie Belloc-Walton, she's a wine sales and market expert with experience across more than 30 international markets. She works directly with reality of distribution, pricing, and what makes wine succeed or fail commercially. And Priscilla Hennekam, Priscilla is a leader of the movement Rethinking the Wine Industry. She works at the crossroad of wine, innovation, and marketing, questioning existing models and helping shape what comes next. So, how this roundtable works, each question will be addressed to one of our panelists who will have up to 6 minutes to develop the response. After that, I will invite one or two other panelists to complement the answer with a short reflection for 2 or 3 minutes each. This allows us to go deep without losing the flow, okay? So let's start with language, how wine is explained and understood. Isabel, given your work in sensory science and consumer perception, I would love to start with you. The aroma wheel became a universal language for wine from sensory science. What make that language work globally, and what conditions must any wine language meet today to truly connect with consumers?
Yes, thank you for the question. I'm delighted to be here. Well, I'm a bit uneasy with the word universal language because I know it raised a lot of red flags these days. And really, the wine aroma wheel was created by Dr. Anne Noble at UC Davis to facilitate communication, not to put barriers in communication. So it's true that this language was developed in the US after tasting hundreds of American wines, and the tasters were, most of them were from American descent. So definitely the culture, was the Americas. And to be honest, coming from France, when the first time I read the wine aroma wheel, I had no idea what butterscotch or what was the other one that I had in mind. Linalool was. So there are things like that that, doesn't make the language universal, but it's a guide. And I think that's how we should look at the wine language from a sensory perspective. This wine aroma wheel that I have in my hand is really a guide to help people communicate about their perception, because we never learn how to describe what we smell or what we taste. And this is a guide to help people break down their perception into simple categories with more or less familiar words. So this language is really a first step to help people starting wine tasting, starting discovering wine, to express what they feel, what they like in a wine, what they don't like. And this language is, it has been shown by research. I'm a researcher, so I love quoting researchers. this 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 tool has been shown to help novices really understand, the process of wine tasting and how to look at wine in a structured way. So Catherine Latour from Cornell at the time did a thorough study to demonstrate that tools like the wine aroma wheel were a great guide to help, first time tasters to really feel comfortable with describing their perception, because it's an unusual aspect. And I've used the wine aroma wheel, myself in my practice, and I can, share some stories. One day I was in a tasting room in Georgia, and we were receiving a flight of wine. And my habit is to take notes, because that's how I remember the wines. I need to take notes. And the guy who was sitting beside me was asking me, how do you do that? How do you find those words? So of course I took my, secret weapon. This is the wine aroma wheel. And then he used it, for the rest of the tasting. And it was just how engaging this simple tool, became to help those people who never had, this simple instruction of sensory tasting, to navigate the wheel, to use, they were turning the wheel, they were looking at the words, just to help communicate with each other what they thought about the wine. So I think that we need a language to communicate, to facilitate communication. And, in order to be accessible to consumers, it has to be relatable. And the words need to be familiar to those consumers. And the way we do that in sensory is to anchor those words with definitions, but also with example, with standards. So to go back to your question about, how it can be truly connect with the consumers today, I mean, we have to get rid of the technical language. Technical language talks to technical experts, but not to consumers. Nobody knows what, minerality or tannins are, even within, among experts. So to talk to consumers, we have to use words that they can relate to and describe, with words that are, by association of products that they know. And I think that's what the language needs to be, to facilitate communication so people are comfortable saying what they think about the wine or what they think about the experience. And not everyone wants to be expert in blind tasting and discovering, what grape or what vintage the wine is. It's about enjoyment. You enjoy the wine, you don't enjoy the wine. So language is a facilitator to express what you like or what you don't like, so that you can shop wine more, wisely and decide, what you want to experience for the next sip.
Thank you very much,
I don't know if I use my 6 minutes, but
no, that's great. So, Virginie, from sales perspective, does a common language facilitate sales, or can it sometimes limit them?
I think a common language is easing the sales because it makes people understand better each other. And even though the wines are different, if you use the same language or the same words, especially in the tasting process, I think it can only help with the sales. The only thing is sometimes I think we need to adapt to the wine and to the market as well, because I often see on tech notes things about how to drink the wine and food and wine and food pairing, and I think it's good to adapt it to the local market and to the country. I just take an example on many tech notes. I can often see that, for example, for the aromas, for the fruity aromas, I can still see exotic fruits, and it always attracts me because what is exotic in some places maybe is not in another one. So I just think that it's very good to have the same vocabulary, but at the same time, I think we really need to focus on the local market and to adapt to the local gastronomy, to the moment, to the drinking moment as well. For example, in France, sometimes we have wine as an aperitif and before dinner. And in many countries, you do not drink wine without dinner. So it's just something that the vocabulary is very important. It's very good to share the same one. But I think at the same time, we need to adapt very much from the producer side to the local market.
Okay,
and it will
great.
Indeed boost the sales completely, I think.
Thank you, Virginie. Sophie,
you're welcome.
Does this kind of language travel well across cultures, or does it require local adaptation in China specifically?
I think the answer is clear. It cannot be fully cross-culture. Local adaptation is a must. Let's take aroma wheel as an example. For example, when it's used simple terms like fruit notes or flower notes to lower the barrier, but that's not enough for the Chinese market, I think. For example, like the words like blackcurrant, mulberry, raspberry. For Chinese, local Chinese, they will totally lost because these fruits are not very common in China. And they have no idea, absolutely no idea what does blackcurrant mean when it refers to a Cabernet Sauvignon. And also another example is the earthy notes. So Westerners may see this as a premium flavor, but for Chinese consumers will probably go, this wine spoiled. This shows that the core principle of modern wine language are universal, but the specific wording has to fit local understanding. In China, also another example is for the earthy notes. For the fresh scent of pine needles. If you explain earthy notes as fresh scent of pine needles, that would help much better for the Chinese to understand what that means. And also when it comes to, they describe like heavy tannins by like sipping a rich full-bodied tea will be much easier for Chinese people to understand. And yeah, I think these are the example of the cultural gap between the aroma wheel and also the understanding by Chinese.
Thank you. That give us a strong foundation. Staying with the perception, let's move from language to experience. Isabel, I will stay with you for this question.
Mm-hmm.
Why can wine tasting be technically perfect and still fail to create memory, emotional attachment, or the desire to return?
Yeah, I I like this question because to me it revealed the misunderstanding that, across the wine industry we have about the objective of wine tasting. I think there are different types of wine tastings. There is the wine tasting that the experts are conducting to judge quality, to make sure the wine is sound, that it can be marketable. And then, in the commercial setting, you want to compare your wines with, your competitors. You want to benchmark your wines. So you are doing a comparative tasting, a competitive tasting, and you have a different objective. You look at the quality, but you look at the fit to market and maybe other marketing data, sales data that, help you make a decision. Then we have the sensory wine tasting. We are sitting in research and development. So what we want to understand about the wine is really what the wine tastes like without any market information, without any other external factors that can influence our perception. So we want to be fair to the wine. So we describe and measure, and we want to interpret whatever viticultural or enological practices have, what are their influence on the taste of wine. So we want to be fair to the wine. And then you have hospitality tasting. I think that, most of you ladies are on this side of the business where you want to present the wine, tell the stories, and really, create an event so that the clients, the customers, fell in love with you, with the wine, with the story, with the winemakers, etc. So beside hospitality tasting, the other types of tastings are really objective, needs to be set in a certain conditions so that we have the data to make decisions. Hospitality tastings, when we want to present the wine, that's why we want the connection with the emotions to really create an event that is memorable. And that's where, sometimes the tasting doesn't have to be technically perfect. That's where you really want to create an event that make the person comfortable. You really want to understand who your customers are and make sure that you are talking about something that relates to them. How many times I've been to tasting rooms where the first thing I'm told is the tech sheet, and I just want to taste the wine. And I'm a so-called wine professional. I just want to enjoy, to really understand, if I like the wine style that is produced in that place. So I think it's really about understanding the consumers. And I said consumers with an S at the end, because in the industry, we tend to talk about the consumer as a one entity. Like, there is only one wine consumer. There are different segments of consumers, different segments of customers. And I know the wine sales are regulated differently in all countries. So sometimes we don't speak to the consumers. We speak to a gatekeeper that pretends to know what the consumer wants. So it adds, levels of complexity. I really understand that. But we can't talk about wine the same way to all the consumers. We have to understand who our consumers are and adapt the experience, the tasting experience to their needs. So in order to create memories, we need to engage the consumers. If you want the consumers to memorize the wine, they have to have time to taste the wines. How many times I've been to tasting where we start tasting the wines and the leaders is talking in the background. So you can't really focus on the wine. You're just listening. It's a multi-sensory experience, but if you want people to remember the wine, they have to be engaged in the wine at least a few minutes so that they can remember. And then the other contextual factors help memorize in their brain, what this actual experience was. And it could be a good memory or bad memory. If the tasting is boring, all they will remember is that tasting is boring, is not the wine, but they will associate, the tasting experience with the wine tasting bad, which might not be the case. So I think we have to craft the tasting experience according to the consumers we are talking to, and let the consumers, the tasters, experience the wine for a few minutes, and then you tell the stories. Don't, try to build the experience so that it creates good memories, but we have to be, very aware of all the factors impacting this memorization of the event, if I can say it that way.
Okay,
Does it
that's
make
great.
sense? I'm just looking at my notes if I forgot anything. Yeah. What I will add, if I may, is that we can't segment consumers by generation or by the fact that, or by the, over demographic data. If we want to understand their taste preference, I've never seen any correlation between being a boomer or, a Gen Xer and the type of wine that we like. Taste preferences depend on the people backgrounds. That depends on their values. That depends on their lifestyle. So we have to do a much better segmentation work to understand our consumers beyond generation, beyond demographic. And, the DTC organizations and wineries selling directly to consumers have a lot of data they could use to leverage to really understand their consumers. This might not be the case with other type of organizations, but the more you know about the consumers, the more you can craft better experiences for them to come back. And that will be my final word.
Thank you, Isabel. This is a very good point. Priscilla, how does this gap between memory and engagement show up in innovation and marketing?
So I thank you, Isabel, for the talking, firstly. And I do agree there is a different types of consumers, there's a different types of tastings. But I want to add it on that thing is when you talk about memories and engagement, I think there is something we don't speak it very loud and most of the time. Wine is more than just a taste. If you want to create memories, you need to think in more than just the tasty. There is a lot of research of the Charles Spencer. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with the research, where he's actually have done research about the environment, the music, the mood of the person. Is actually can completely give you a different memory for the person who is actually tasting wine. So when you're thinking about the memory engagement with consumers, we take a taste as one thing of the whole experience. So if the mood, the food, the environment, the light, the person who is actually hosted the taste, it's not actually all in every environment is not given the every single pieces of the puzzle is not create that memory. It's actually we are missing a point with the customer. So I think when you talk about members engagement and innovation, you need to take in as a different perspective from one is a tasty as a subjective abstracted, that's what it is, because that's what we lose in meaning in the industry. We lose in meaning exactly because you actually became a wine became a number 95 points. Wine became a setup type of tasty, lemon, lime, strawberries, and they became too abstracted. And when you learn about neuromarketing, neuroscience, you know what is actually make people buy is in a conscious mind, is actually the right brain, is the right thinking, and then that is actually engagement with the context. So the context of many things, not abstracted like how the left thinking. So I think that's the thing. We talk about memories, we need to ask more questions about ourselves. What's the person in front of me? What's the actually the value? Make more questions to engage, to understand that person, and it became more empathy as well when you're creating experience for people. If you know the people in front of you, what they like, what they values, what they are, you can create the better experience for them. I think we needed to create experience. It doesn't look like the same. Because if you're going to Chile, if you're going to Australia, you're going to Bordeaux, you're going everywhere, the wine you taste is going to be 4 or 5 glasses in front of the people. So many people is going to engage with that experience and going to get good memories, but not everybody. So how we can engage with different ways. And I think that's the innovation we need to bring to the wine industry, making more questions about what we can do more, what we can engage in more context, what we can bring meaning to the wine industry again, what we can bring this back. Because just education is not working, because if you're working, we have plenty of people drinking wine, because that is something we do and they do a lot. So what is the next? I think that's the questions we need to think.
Thank you, Priscilla. Virginie, how does this translate into repeat purchase and loyalty?
I totally agree to what has been said so far. Indeed, when you remember what you remember during wine tasting is the emotion you are feeling, or the experience you're living, whether it be at the chateau, in the premises, or because or thanks to the person who is leading the tasting. And all of this is very important because you create connection. And how is that been? It has been said, connection is very important because wine is a lot about emotion, experience. When you are buying a bottle of wine from Chile or France or Spain or Italy, you want to buy a little bit of this place and the everything about the memories you can have there. So yeah, I agree that memory, connection, emotion, this is all this is all about it actually. And it helps to repeat orders and maintain connection and build a long-term relationship with your customers.
Okay, thank you very much. So
You're
what
welcome.
Isabel shared help us to understand how people experience wine at a human level. But perception is always shaped by culture and context. So now I would like to move from sensory science to cultural reality and take us to China. So, Sophie, given your direct connection with consumers and platforms in China, I would love your perspective. As Western wine consumption declines in China, is this a rejection of wine as a product or of the cultural and symbolic system surrounding it?
Okay, so let's talk about the decline in Western wine consumption here in China. This isn't just a product versus culture question. There's a lot more at play, including what this shift means for domestic wines too. First, a key point to add, it's not just the Western wine. Domestic Chinese wine consumption is dropping right now too. But the future trajectory of local wine tells a different story, ties to China's rising cultural confidence. Let's start with the current slump. The core backdrop here is economic slowdown and consumption downgrading. Wine was never a necessity, and it has no roots in traditional Chinese beverages. It's a Western import that only arrived in the 1990s. When the economy cools down, people cut non-essential spending first. So wine was bound to see a market-wide slump. Now, on the cultural and symbolic side, a decade ago, Western wine was tied to that Western sophistication narrative, the idea that foreign products equals better or more modern. But that's no longer a draw. Here's where domestic wine comes in. As Chinese consumers embrace cultural confidence, local winemakers are rebranding their products to lean into Chinese identity. For example, some domestic wine now highlight regional terroir or pair with local cuisine, shifting from copying Western wine story to telling a telling a Chinese one. This ties into another shift, young people's consumption logic. They are not into wine for social phase like their parents. They don't need drinks to bond. Instead, if they do choose wine, they are drawn to stories that feel relatable. A domestic wine that celebrates local landscapes or craft feels more authentic to them than a Western bottle ties to a foreign cultural script. There's also the barrier to entry issue. Unlike grab-and-go drinks, tea or baijiu, Western wine comes with rules, tasting notes, food pairing, etc. That whole complicated ritual feels too much hassle for today's consumers. Domestic Chinese wine, though, is starting to simplify this. Some brands position their bottles as casual, everyday options, making them more accessible than their Western counterparts. To wrap this up, the current slump in Western wine isn't a rejection of the liquid itself, or just a Western symbolism. It's a perfect storm of economic headwinds, cultural confidence, and the generational shifts in what consumers value. For domestic wine, the future is about leaning into Chinese identity, ditching the old imitate the West playbook, and building a narrative that feels true to local culture. That's where its growth will come from. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. So, Virginie, how does this impact international portfolios and brand strategies?
Well, indeed, as Sophie said, the choice is very wide, and wine is appearing as a product which is complex. And indeed, it's the trend became stronger and stronger in China, but indeed, it's not something which is necessary, nor something which is written in the original culture. So I suppose, I think, and I know that local brands and Chinese brands are growing, and it is normal because market demand is corresponding more to local brands, and that's very understandable. So indeed, I think what can make international brands successful in China is to adapt more and more and to understand more and more the local culture and to adapt to the drinking moments and also to the expectations customers have in China, because it's a necessary adaptation, I think, and because the choice is very wide, and they Chinese consumers will go for another option if we don't adapt. So that's, in my opinion, the impact on international portfolios.
Thank you. Isabel,
You're welcome.
how does culture shape the taste perception from your scientist point of view?
It shapes it a lot, actually. We learn to like or dislike food and beverages during our childhood and upbringing. Don't have the chance to have a kid, but many parents know how picking eaters or drinkers are, and it takes up to, I think, 7 exposure for a kid to love broccoli, because broccoli is bitter. So that's why broccoli now has been bred to remove the bitterness. So our culture shapes what we know, what we are familiar with, and and shapes our preferences, especially in the early days. After that, in the teenage years and early adulthood, other pressures change our taste perception and preferences. I mean, perception is never the truth. It's the interpretation of our brain, like Priscilla mentioned earlier. A lot of things impact our perceptions, light, music, etc. But peer pressure, social norms, external factors, like Sophie was mentioning, initially wine in China was brought as a luxury item, as a social status. It was not about the taste, Chinese culture doesn't really like, the alcohol and these harsh tannins that border wines that didn't age, were delivering. It was another benefits that they were looking for. So, if we think about wine, it has alcohol, it can be bitter, the flavors can be earthy or very not food related. If you think about it, nobody should like wine because it has all these negative flavors, but somehow it became a cultural product. It became part of our, history in Europe, and we, because we love it so much, we want other culture to appreciate it. However, we have to adapt to understand the other culture and make those connections. So we have to think beyond taste to really connect to a benefit that the consumers of other cultures are looking for. Sophie was mentioning, easy to drink, the occasions, etc. That's what we need to relate the taste experience with the occasion so that it makes a package that is desirable by the consumer. So culture shapes our taste perception as many other things, but knowing it help us engage with consumers differently and create experience that should be a win-win at the end of the day.
Great, thank you. Let's stay in China, but shift to how wine is discovered and learned. Sophie, I will stay with you. In China, wine education happens largely through digital platforms and KOLs. What does this ecosystem understand about learning desire and trust that the traditional wine world is missing?
Well, in China, the wine education ecosystem built on digital platforms and KOLs have nailed the core logic of learning, desire, and trust that the traditional wine world still misses. It boils down to five things: speed, emotion, identification, short storytelling, and relational authority. First, speed and short storytelling. Traditional wine education is linear, top-heavy stuff. Learn tannins first and then test classifications with hour-long tasting. But in the digital space, KOLs break how to pick a beginner wine into 15-second TikTok clips, using tips like 3 words to tell sweet versus dry wine.
Yes.
So it fits young people's habit of fragmented learning. They don't want systematic knowledge. They want practical tricks they can use right away. Then there's emotion and identification. The traditional world frames wine as elite only, making learning feel like passing an exam. But digital KOLs will say, when I first drank red wine, it tasted as astringent as herbal medicine. They use their own fails to connect, then recommend sweet wine that don't clash with hot pot. They tie learning wine to solving real life pain points. So young people think this isn't studying, this is finding a lifestyle that works for me. That's how design kicks in. Finally, relational authority. In the traditional world, trust comes from master titles or chateau classification, top down, expert to amateur credibility. But in the digital space, trust is I follow this KOL for 6 months. Our tastes are similar, and the wine she recommended last time was great. It's trust built on fellow enthusiast relationships, not expert condensations. For example, a regular Red Book blogger posts a 9 a 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. bus diary drives more young buyers than a professional sommelier because people trust the real experiences from someone like them, just like them. So what the traditional wine world lack isn't expertise, it's understanding today's consumers. Learning doesn't need to be systematic, but useful. Desire isn't about aspiring to be elite, but fitting my life. Trust doesn't come from titles, but people like me.
So, Priscilla, could platforms be considered a new form of terroir?
So I love what Sophie said because I had that newsletter where we're talking exactly about that, Sophie. Yeah, that says authority became is actually changing, shifting for network. That's pretty much what we say. People trust you more if you see someone look like them. Like I wanted to follow someone look like me. I wanted that experience because I feel like people were. I think the wine industry that doesn't realize the superiority or to say I'm awesome and you are not awesome. It's not selling wine. It's not engaging. It's not memorable. And I think that thing is sold in the past because that's making differentiation between who knows who doesn't know. But I think the word is shifting for inclusion. We want to be then the we are feeling that caution is around us all the time, and we change our behavior. So, but the wine industry has not changed their behavior yet, and but it's understandable when we get the questions. We can talk a little bit more about that. Why the wine industry still behave the way they behave, even when we can see KOLs. I think Penguins. I think this is one of the very famous one in China, who has been having such a many millions of followers and is selling so much wines in China. And then she did that. She just show her every day. It doesn't look like I need to go into a university before I drink wine. It was just a talking, a conversation. I think the educations and engagement is moving from I tell you what to do to say like let's have a chat and let's see what we can engage in together. And also we needed to understand it. We love it to think we teaching people something, but we're not teaching people something. We helping them because when it's about to help them to because they just learn if they want to. So you need to understand that part as well. So they make the wine industry make more and more education and it's so concentrated about education on this systematic way, the Sophie said, it's not going to take us to the next to the next step of the wine industry, to the next innovation of the wine industry. And the biggest shift in the wine industry is exactly what Sophie described. And then that described it very well. We say like from authorities to networks. So now it's about community, it's about who looks like at me, look like we actually wanted to have a conversation. It's a two-way learning. It's not just I say, you listen, and then you shut up. This doesn't work anymore. And in this new world we live in now. And independently if it's Gen Z or GX or G whatever, we are in Gen T. So the generation of transition. So forget about the generations and think about transition. So thank you, Sophie. I agree 100% with you. This is such an incredible talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Priscilla. I just want to add one more sentence is that nowadays in China, people no longer believe in Master of Wine, 100 points, Robert Parker. They no longer believe in these authorities anymore. No, nothing. If you started to talk about Robert Parker, Master of Wine, they just want to go away immediately.
Wow. I can feel the same here as well. Here in Australia, this is already passed through. So, and in Brazil, the same. I think this is a common feeling in different parts of the world.
Yeah, word change. Great.
Isabel, how do we balance scientific authority with lived experience?
Before I answer the question, I want to reflect on Sophie, if you don't mind, because the way you describe, the network, it reminds reminded me, how I learned about wine when I was younger, back in France, where, friends were new wine producers, and we would go on a weekend and visit the wine producer, taste wine, just, in the kitchen, having a good conversation. And, it was not technology. It was just like, really one-on-one person. But with the technology, we can amplify that phenomenon, and it's amazing. And when I arrived in the US, I didn't understand why we had to go to school to learn about wine. So, this whole aspect of getting a certification and being a master of wine, I mean, I respect all that knowledge, but again, it doesn't help the consumers at the end of the day. So scientific authority and lived experience. I mean, in my role as a tasting coach, I use my scientific background to help consumers understand their perceptions, understand why some people are saying sweet and others are saying, fruity. Try to help them demystify this whole world of wine language, wine lexicon, and so that they feel confident with their own perception. And scientific knowledge helps understand, the world. And we don't know everything. We're still learning every day. Scientific authority helps the wine producers better understand their consumers. Design experiment to improve the quality of the wine, to test new technologies in their wine cellars, understand how they can create experiences in the tasting rooms, so that we collect data, we look at data, we help them make this decision. This is how scientists can help the wine industry level up. And when I worked in the industry at Coke or elsewhere, I mean, scientists work very closely with the business, because we translate, what the business wants into experiments, so we can test hypotheses and deliver the product that meets the market, and vice versa. When we have a technology that, we think will revolutionize the world of beverage, we work with the business to test that hypothesis and make it work. Or if it doesn't work, at least we will know why. So I think we can't get rid of the scientific knowledge. We still need to understand the world, but we don't need to download this information to the consumers. They don't need it if they don't want it. If they are curious and want to know more, then we can help them understand their experience. I mean, I like the way that Sophie described, the influence of the influencers and the social selling online, etc. If some people want to go beyond that, they can find, the scientific meaning of their perception, but not everyone wants to go there. So I think there is a balance, but the lived experience, you cannot learn how to taste wine online. I'm sorry, you have to put the beverage in your mouth at some point. And, Priscilla may know better about technologies that mimic, our perception, but I don't think at this stage we have the technology to really mimic what we smell or what we taste. And we can talk about the artificial nose or the artificial tongue. They are not where they could be right now to really represent what a human being experience. So we still need to put the beverage in our mouth to really understand wine.
Yes, it's a lived
Thank you.
experience. Thank you, Isabel, and thank you very much, Sophie. What we heard from Sophie show us that wine today is discovered through very different systems. So the question becomes, how does this translate into real markets and real business? So, Virginie, from your experience across more than 30 markets, I would love to start with you. When a wine doesn't sell today, what is most often failing? The product, the price, the channel, or the story surrounding it?
Well, thank you for this question, Natalie. That's a very wide question, and I'm sure everyone would like to know the answer,
Yes.
but I'm not sure that it is easy to answer the question. But I will try to make it short and to speak about my experience. there is a very big paradox, because wine has never been as good as now. The quality has increased a lot over the past years. The offer is very wide as well. You can choose wine for every kind of taste. But even though it's more and more difficult to sell wine, I will start with the price, because I think it's a key point. To sell wine, you need to be at the right price. You need to study the market, the market, and the market price as well, and to focus on the market you want to enter. And most of the time, the mistake I can see is that producers built the price on their product cost, and don't really focus on the market price in the local market. They don't really study competition either. So that makes sometimes a big difference, and they don't fit the market really. So this is one key point, because I don't know, I think I only have one customer who doesn't really care about price, but in any other market, and all the other customers I know, price is very important. That's the key point. That's number one. So that's very important to know what you do when you're presenting a wine. Then wine, of course, it's as we already said, it's a wonderful product, but it's not easy to understand, and not everyone. And sometimes people feel shy when we speak about wine, because they think what they don't know instead of what they know, or what they can taste or feel, and that's a very big problem, I would say, for wine, because people prefer to try maybe other drinks, like beer or other, than wine, because they feel very shy. And this is something we need to improve, or to fight, I would say, but even though I don't like to use this word, but this is a key point as well. And also, I keep saying that we need to study the market and to adapt to the market you want to focus on, because I see so many producers. I speak about France because these are the producers I know the most. They don't really study the market before going there. They don't really know about habits and drinking moments. As we said earlier, about the way to describe wine and for tasting. And this is one of the reasons why they don't succeed in the market, because they did not prepare enough. Or they think that every market is similar, which is not. So that's very important. Also, it doesn't mean that you cannot offer something different or new, but you need to work your communication and your storytelling, and who you are talking to as well, as we already said. And this is very important, because otherwise you cannot succeed. And I would finish with feelings and emotions, because you cannot. It's very important. We can speak about science and everything, but what at the end of the day, what is important is what you're feeling, what the customer understands, and what the customer feels. And this is something you cannot avoid, because wine is a part of. Is very important in, as Priscilla said about the act of purchase. You're not really conscious about it. So you have to your customer must feel emotions, and he must understand what the product is. And despite all you can do as a scientist or technically, then if it doesn't feel anything good, then you cannot succeed. So this is and again you need to offer, this is a promise, this is a dream. So if the tasting is not good, then you cannot succeed. So I would finish with this. And yeah, most of the time the experience you're having when you're tasting or when you're visiting a chateau, that makes it all. So you need to work on your storytelling and on your fame as well, and how you communicate about what you're producing. And this is something sometimes which is thought after everything, after production, after techniques. And I would suggest to be one of the first steps instead of the last one. I would finish with this.
Thank you, Virginie.
You're
A
welcome.
complete answer. It was a tough one. Isabel, how much of this is perception versus the actual sensory reality from your point of view, of course?
Yeah, always related to sales, right? Yeah. So my experience in CPG companies is that, when a product fail on the market, it's because, the technical staff didn't do the good work. And technical staff will say, well, you guys, marketing and sales, you didn't do the right thing, the right activation. So there is always, a tension between why a product failed on the market. Is it because the product didn't taste good, or, the activation wasn't made right? And, the former CEO of Coca-Cola, Muhtar Kent, was saying, a brand is a promise, and a good brand is a promise well kept. And, this is, when I was at Coke, this was, really our motto. We need to deliver what the good brand, express. What Virginie was saying, you need to start by understanding the market, understanding what you are promising to the market to deliver, and make sure that the product match that promise. So that's why when sensory scientists work with marketers, in CPGs, and it happens also in the wine industry, we looked at the product sensory qualities, the sensory benefits, but also we want to make sure that the sensory qualities match, the marketing that is made around the wine. So the first thing is the label, the bottle, how we talk about the wine on the back label. And we do a lot of experiments to look at the functional benefits, the emotional benefits, and we try to make sure that, we do experiments to make sure that what the brand promise in terms of emotions, in terms of functional benefits, in terms of taste benefits, is reflecting in the tasting experience. It's not done, by three people around the table deciding, that they like the product and the label graphic looks cool. It's done, with an actual experimental design to make sure that, the numbers give us the right fit. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it takes some time, some homework to make sure that the product delivers on the brand promise. But it's essential in order to make, to increase the likelihood of success on the market. It's never sure, because there is always things that happen on the market that the activation may fail. But if the brand and the product are not consonant, are not working together, it's very difficult to be successful on the market. And then knowledge the market, like Virginie was saying, is critical. So in terms of the perception and the product reality, that's the product is not only the beverage, it's everything else. And we have to work with all the functions within the wine business to make sure that we deliver a whole package that works for the consumers and the market.
Thank you very much, Isabel. Priscilla, Isabel just talked a little bit about this already. So how important is coherence between the promise and the experience?
So great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, girls. Very good points here. But I will add a layer for what Isabel already said, what Virginia said, to make people actually thinking. So when you were talking here about why one doesn't sell, I don't know if you pay attention, and in all behavior, but we all blame something. Is the wine was not good? Was the market was not good? Did you notice we blaming things? It's all about blaming. We never taking the they think about ourselves. What are we actually about? My communication, did I even don't use the same words, like, because it seems like for me everything's the same promises. I don't know if you girls feel the same, but everything is luxury, everything is premium, everyone is all the same language, the same promises again, 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 again. So the one word is became, the vocabulary became very narrow, and we never even stop it to thinking about like what actually luxury means, because luxury in Singapore, it's here in China, everywhere is luxury. The wine industry love that word. Premium, I don't know like how many wines, it's like, who is the most premium vineyards, this is the most better vineyards, this is the most high end so the whole wine words became the same promise. You don't, if you would use ChatGPT to write things, you probably see lots of the ChatGPT just repeat the same words, because that's the only base we actually send to them as well. And people using ChatGPT, the labels and everything, the content creation on the Instagram and social media became the same. So how the experience do you want it to bring to the table to the consumer? It doesn't look like the same of your neighbor. If you just really just copy and paste what is already validated. No one want to fail in the wine industry. No one want to try something new. No one wanted to. It's all the same words, the same thing, the same feeling, the same experience, and the same promises. So I think what missing the wine industry really is a little bit like a, I think it's salt and pepper. We put it all in the old foods. So let's put paprika. Let's put something else. Let's put like some other condiments. Try something different to see if that bring something new. Because I think even as a consumer, I can't. If someone is telling me like it's the best vineyards, I just switch off. It's like, okay, great. I can't really listen anything else, because the two wineries I went before, they said the same thing. I think the sameness of the same promises is really drive me crazy. Sometimes I can't really go to wineries anymore, because I know exactly what they're going to say, and then when they say the same thing, it's just like, again, and I think if that's for me, I have this cautiousness now. Can you imagine for the customers who are going to holiday in the Barossa Valley for a couple of days, and they visit 2-3 wineries a day, and they say the same thing and the same experience with the same promises? Can you feel the customer side? Can you put in your shoes in the car? And then they could go to one, and they're going to go into like amazing holidays on the beach, and a very different experience. So what's the reason for them to coming back to the winery? What's the reason for them to have this taste and this promise and this experience again? I think that's the thing I wanted to make people thinking. Stop blaming stuff. Stop blaming, think external, and start to think about inside you what I can do different, what the paprika I can put in on this, or what the type of condiments I can do here to bring something different for the people I want to serve. Because I think that's the copy and paste what the neighbor did. It's, if you wanted to be on the 2026 business in 2027, you need to be bold, or be forget, because people really on the stage of the wine industry is, you need to be bold and try different things. And I think the promise, you need to start to move from luxury, premium, the most best vineyards in the world, because that's exactly what in Australia, in Chile, in China, in France, in everyone in the world use the same words. So for me, that's the only layer I would add in for what the girls already said. And that the people start to rethink about, stop blaming others and blame external things, and start to blame yourself for the things what you have today. I think that's, if your life is not, if your wine is not selling, think about what you can do better instead to blaming other stuff to making you feel good about yourself. The comfort zone is not a great place to be. You need to be uncomfortable. So put yourself on the place of consumers, and be uncomfortable with that, and you probably find the right answers.
Thank you, Priscilla. Staying with markets and systems, I will stay with you, Virginie. From your experience, which wine sales practice are silently dying, even though the industry keeps clinging to them?
That's another good question. The first thing I'm thinking of is selling without telling, because for a long time, fame was for a long time, fame was sufficient, and big chateaus or big wines were just expecting the customers to come. And I'm sorry to tell them that it's over now. And even though some chateaus still are still expecting something to happen, which will never happen. So that's one of the first thing I was thinking of. The second one would be, and it meets what Priscilla just said, is about the vocabulary which is used, because it's either complex or it's always the same one. I always see the words like terroir, tradition, and I could add, as you said, Priscilla, premium, luxury, but terroir, tradition, family-owned winery for a few decades, it's always the same thing. Be innovative, be proactive. You cannot keep on like this. And at the same time, these same people just say, I don't understand. It does not work. It's not working as it used to be. Yes, so just change something. Don't wait for it to happen, because it will not. So, and also, I understand the communication today for some chateaus and producers, it's not easy. But it's all about what they have to do today is to change their communication, to be innovative, to try something new, because all the neighbors are doing the same thing, are still expecting, and it will not change if they don't change themselves. There is also another thing, which is what I call cold selling, just sending the same message to everyone. And it doesn't work either. You cannot talk to someone who is in Europe the same way you are talking to someone who is in America or in China or in another country or in Asia or in Africa. It's not possible. So you need to adapt what you're telling them, how you are talking about your vineyard, your wine. It's not possible to say to use it. To use the same words and the same arguments and the same phrases. And I'm really confident because consumers need connection. That's very important. And I'm really confident that this sector is gaining more and more women, because I have the strong feeling that women are more customer orientated. And I think communication is something they are more focused on the end consumer, on their customers, and I think that's really what is lacking. And even though it changes a lot, and obviously it's a good thing, but we need to communicate more. We need to have another message. We need to bring something new. We need to bring novelty, because the old ways to do it are not working anymore. So we have no other option, actually.
Thank you. Sophie.
You're welcome.
What clearly no longer works in China or Asia?
Well, in the Chinese market, the multi-tiered importer, distributor, retailer chain, especially the middle distributor layer, is fading quickly. Back in the day, one relied on that layered system. Importers sold to regional distributors, who then passed stuff to retailers. But now, importers are cutting out those middlemen. They are selling direct to retail spots, leaning hard on online channels, or even opening their own physical stores. Distributors used to add unnecessary margins and slow down logistics, and now Chinese consumers are used to buying direct online or connecting straight to brands. This old clunky chain's inefficiency and extra cost just doesn't fit the market anymore. The second is the one-size-fits-all premium positioning. treating every imported wine as a high-end, special occasion-only product. For years, the industry framed wine as a luxury status symbol, tying it only to weddings or business dinners. But now, young people want wine to be an everyday, casual pick, like pairing it with hot pot or grabbing in a small bottle to unwind on a weekday night. Yet the industry is still stuck on that premium style, fancy packaging, hyping chateau heritage for cheap wines, and it's pushing away the fastest growing group. Folks who just want a drink that fits their daily life, not a status symbol. Both of these moves are fading fast. This is the change in China.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Priscilla, why is the system so resistant to letting go?
I would just compliment Sophie. I really like her thoughts. I think that whole system is moving that way, Sophie. It's not just in China. I can tell in Australia the same thing. People don't attach it to this old way of thinking. Um, and then why the system is resisting letting go? I would say about I want to explore two ideas, bring some analogy here so that people actually can understand better. So the problem with the wine industry is because why in the wine industry is who knows all these authorities and everything we have today. It's pretty much became the identity. If you feel like the wine, what the way it is your identity, it's very hard to let it go. It's just imagine is about to you, and that's the thing. The people who is the wine industry who has the power to change the wine industry is exactly the people who created the wine industry. So if you created the wine industry, how it is, how you can let it go? It's just imagining like if they create it's like the sun. It is your son. How do you can actually create it making your son and then you just let it go because it doesn't fit the world we live in now? So there is a lot of psychology behind in the wine industry, and that we need to put in empathy to understand them to be able to help them to get to the change. And that's because it's very hard for them because they create the system we live in now in the wine industry. This who knows, who doesn't know, the authority, this status, belief you, this luxury talk is all created by the people who actually have the power to change the wine industry. And because they create that, they really believe that's the sun, that's everything they have, there's identity. And then when you're talking about the identity, it's dangerous. Then you feel like they're going against to you. And there's a book, it's called about, it's talking about an experience of psychology when if a group of people actually they make them believe in and you treat the identity of them beliefs, they don't change it. Then if there's something's happening, like if the car is gonna come in, everybody think the car not gonna come, the guy is gonna arrive in the head and they're gonna still not believe they're gonna come because when it's the belief is attached to the identity, it's very hard to let it go. It's like to say no to your son. And that's, I think that's the feeling in the wine industry we're having now. And that's the thing we need to understand it then and then be empathy with the people who on this cycle of very struggling to change. But we needed to recognize it and help it then to moving to adaptable mode because with the AI coming and the next 2 years, 2026 to 2027, it's going to change it absolutely everything how consumers behavior and just doing because we build this and because we believe it's our entity, it's not going to help it then to the business. It's not going to help it wine be the next and wine business be actually be the next things in the future. So I think if you wanted to think about wine future, we need to let it go of things and then we need to unlearn and learn things again.
Thank you. What we've heard so far makes one thing very clear. Many challenges in wine today are not about quality, but about the system. So let's zoom and look forward. Priscilla, as a leader of the movement Rethinking the Wine Industry, I would love your view. If wine is no longer aspirational for a younger generation, what must be reinvented first? The marketing, the experience, the product, or the commercial structure itself? 5 minutes, please.
I'll I'll be very honest with you all. I really think we always try to get external changes because we have been programming in your mind to blame the external, to fight external answers, and that's why I'm going to take this question to other way, because I think it's not only about the one thing in the wine industry, not only about communication, it's not only about distribution, it's not only it's really about the consciousness and the mindset of the wine industry. And because I believe on that, the first thing we need to change is not external, it's ourselves. So it's literally ourselves we needed to start to making questions to ourselves. Is this it existed like something on the science? Again, talk about brains. So it's called metacognition. So that means people see and behave the way they behave in the wine industry is because they wanted to believe in the brain, because they wanted to believe, they show then what they want to see. And the things is getting worse because AI just to make sure they don't have friction anymore. So your brain just tell you right, you're right, you're right, you're right. So we don't have breaking realities anymore. So and we have even another factor helping us with that is the algorithms, because the algorithms is going to show you every single in the social media they can tell you absolutely 100% right. And then we have this algorithm is going against us, and you're going to ask ChatGPT, yes, yes, you're right, you should not change anything, you should do the one. So and then that's the friction. We don't have a friction anymore. We don't have a frictions in the way we think. Our brain became very limited, very narrow to just one way to see things. We don't have a critical thinking. We became a group thinking at the moment. And if you're putting all those things together, and that is why we have these sometimes very toxic debates and conversation when people just to try to fight it with each other. And it could be in the one industry, but be politics and anything else. And we became like enemies at the moment if you don't agree with each other. So, and that is because we really don't learn how we critical thinking. We don't take other perspectives to the table. But how we can solve is such a big problem, that's the biggest declining we have been for decades in the wine industry, by not taking another perspectives, by not putting different perspectives on the table. We think the solution is going to come from where? If it's not collective intelligence, if not girls like us today try to figure out what's gonna go next, if you don't have these conversations, how we can actually build the future? We need more collaboration and collective intelligence. I don't think it's gonna be the god is gonna come from there and say like, look, the wine industry is gonna sell wine again, let everyone is gonna be right. So I think people just expected something like that. Someone's coming with genius and solving all those problems, but they don't understand that we have to solve the problems because we need to change ourselves. And the perception of the people in the wine industry is becoming pretty much tied with that perception. It worked in the past, it must work in the future, or the future is going to be just slightly different of yesterday. And that false, help us to adapt it. So things start to moving in, like things in, like Sophie said, like how China is moving so fast. Like I said, because I read a lot of news about China, because the technology there is just going amazingly rapidly changes. And like if people in China is moving faster and faster ever and ever. Like one day we have a ChatGPT, the other day China creates Seek. So things like that is not waiting years to deliver anything anymore. And it is change behaviors because people are looking now for now they're looking for recommendations with ChatGPT, which wine I buying today. So they don't looking for Google or for authorities or for 94 points. They're going to say like, I'm going to go into a camping. I want to take to, can you help me? Like some people tell me like that's what they're doing on the bottle shops now. So these technologies change behavior, and the consumers' behavior is something we should talk in more and more and more. But it started to try to understand that change behaviors and consumers' behaviors and what we drive to the next. So we try to still think the past is going to be the same as yesterday, or the future is going to be the same as yesterday. And I think if you keep in defending the past and not adapt to the future, that's going to be the thing for me. That's the most important thing for us for to be adaptable, because it's not only about the younger generation. My generation drink less wines as well. Like I'm millennials. It's not only Gen Z. So we are all in the transition generation. So it's not only about Gen Z. We need to figure out about Gen Z because it's many generations before Gen Z. After Gen Z is not drinking wine how it was before, and we have much more choices. I think it was Isabel or Sophie said, that's people don't want that, if the people don't talk their language, don't make any desire to talk it to the people who want to drink, we want to consume it. So why they going to choose you if there's so many things there to choose? We have so many types of drinks and we have so many wines as well. So it's the difference now. It's not only about only marketing or on experience or on a product. It's not only one thing, because when you change the way we think, all those things is going to be so easy to change, because this is a result of the way we think. We don't change the product, we don't change the market, we don't change the experience, because that's it. So we need to change. We need to go from an defensive mode to adaptive mode, to survive mode to creative mode. And a creative one word actually is going to be part and relevant for the future. So I think that's it. I think that's the way I want to finish in this. I hopefully everyone understand, because I think I was putting like a lot of points together to try to come in my mind. But anyway, so thank you, Nati.
It's okay. Thank you. Virginie, what are the real market limitations?
Actually, I agree with everything Priscilla said, and I will not say it again. The only market limitation I can see, because in France we have some. We have seen in the last year some new products linked to wine, whether it be no low alcoholic wines, or like, for example, the trend of more white wines instead of red wines, or more sparkling wines. And I think it's good, because even in Bordeaux, where the trend was traditional wines were more like oaky wines with high tannin and so on, we have fresher wines. And this kind of changes is very good, because it gives some freshness to the market, I would say. But the only limitation I see is that the trains are passing very fast, and it's not easy to adapt concerning the production mode. And sometimes the train is quicker than the way we can adapt to the wine market, because the production, the cycle of the vine, the production, and also to adapt and research as well for new products, it's taking longer than sometimes the trend. So this is the only limitation I see from the market point of view.
Thank you. Sophie, what early signals do you see in Asia?
Yeah, I think in Asia it's the same. Young Chinese consumers refuse to pay for mere symbols. They only care about that this fit my life. So in China, young Chinese drink wine with crayfish at night, late night food stalls with hot pot bubbling on the table, at girls' nights with bubble tea, or during overtime nights for young professionals, not with formal Western style dinners. And also, we need to restructure the experience. Let wine blind into young people's social context. Once the product fits, we need to use experiences to break the stereotype that wine is pretentious or elitist. What young Chinese want from an experience is participation, interaction, and shareability on social media, not one-way wine tasting lectures. And the third priority, we have to upgrade marketing, make sure speak young people's language. Only when the product and experience are on point can marketing deliver its full impact. Young Chinese are immune to forced advertisement or preachy. Instead, they prefer content that resonates and builds emotional connections.
Thank you very much. So to close, just one last question. Priscilla, I will stay with you. Looking at low alcohol, coffee, wellness, or fashion, what are these industries doing that stay culturally relevant, that wine still resists adopting?
When you're looking for other types of industries and including low alcohol as well, then really now going towards like the wellness, like the actual people wanted to get better the next day, go to the gym, or because they are in the diet or want to drink alcohol, or because the brain, because there is some researches as well. People feel like better if they people say they feel like better if they don't drink alcohol. So, and then that's is the why I think low alcohol is going to be part of the future of the wine industry. And I don't think it's going to be a trend, it's going to go away, and because that's it's going to part of the evolution of the society. And I see like coffee, they changed it quite a lot as well. So you see today coffee without sugar, coffee with proteins, coffee with, because proteins became the other thing in the industry, and they adapted, they create different things. Even the industry like Coca-Cola create a products with no sugar, because that's a new like things is still moving to wellness. Like people wanted to try to get better options for their lives, and I think the wine industry is still very attached to no, that's the my vineyards, that's my 15% alcohol, that's what we should do, that's my what I have it done, that's what my grandparents have it done, and then very hard to adapt it to these new things. Even but the other thing as well I wanted to add it in this is the fashion industry. I love it to start the fashion industry to see what they are doing for adapted. And one thing that Sophie said, it was just before that people like it to have a conversation. It's not like a broadcast. So I like it to actually have a talking, and that's what it brands like Chanel and different brands that's expensive fashion clothes and bags, etc. They actually podcasts with interesting philosophers or different things and what maybe people thinking, and make the customers engaging with the brand, and have a conversation with them, not only you know I am good, look at me, look my clothes, all the same as the wine. You look at me, look my terroir, look my grape, look. I think I wanted to put in this on this way. The way we're doing the wine industry now, can you imagine it to going out with someone you never met before, and then it's a little dating, but you did not kiss yet, and the guy just look at you and they say, "Look at me! I have a house. I am CEO. I am a master of wine. I am this. I'm that," and I started to try to impress you, and but they never ask anything about you. They never asking about what you have done, or what's your job, it's this kind of communication. So they, because consumers, that's why the authority is losing and the network is getting a place, is because We want a conversation, we want a connections. And when the wine industry, when they tell like they have 95 points, they're coming from the best vineyards, they are the best this, best that, best. You don't have conversation. You just have like, look at me, I am awesome. So buy me. And I don't think the people is on that path anymore. They don't want to think the message, they don't attach it to this evolution word. So, and I think that's what these other industries doing very well. They have a conversation with consumers. They actually understand what the desires are. They understand what they fit in their life, and they understand what's the world is going, the evolution is going, and then it's wellness, have a shared connections, and that's what these other industries actually winning space, and the wine industry still on the old way of thinking. So that's why we're losing space, and that's why this conversation is so important for us to reflect and think and adapt it. Thank you, Natalie, so much for that. So
thank you, Priscilla. Isabel, how do emotion and perception play into this?
Yeah, I think what we have been discussing so far is how do we move from being product centric and naval centric to be consumer centric and really understand the people we want to enjoy our product. And having worked in the CPG industry, I've seen how we look at innovation, and the first thing that we look are signals of future trends. When Virginie earlier was saying trends are moving fast. Well, you want to learn about the future trends before they exist, because when trends are in place, it's too late. By the time you plant your grape, your white grape in the soil, 5 years later, the trend is past. So it's really understanding, the consumers and understanding, all the external factors that change society. So how, what would be the need of the consumers in the future? And I will get to emotions in a moment, but really what we want to understand is what is the job to be done to fix a problem that the consumers have. So what are the problems that consumers have with wine? I mean, we talk about them, it's too luxury, it's too premium, it doesn't fit my lifestyle. So it's really about starting by the consumers, understanding where the innovation fits in the job to be done in the consumer lives, so that we can really create a product that delivers those benefits. Again, it can be taste benefits, but it can be functional benefits like wellness, or it could be emotional benefits. And the emotion is what, we want people to feel good. It's really what is the emotion that we want to create. Sometimes I was speaking with a colleague a few days ago, and she said, "Well, I want to like wine because it seems like wine likes helps you relax." So, is it relaxation that we want to convey? Is it fun with our girlfriends when we have a night out? So, we can start about the job to be done that can be emotional, that can be in the context, and then you create the product. You start by the consumers, you try to understand what the product fits, and then you design it, not the other way around. That's how the CPG companies who succeed on the market are thinking. Yes, it takes resources, yes, it takes money and research, but that's the power of the wine industry. If they work as network, we used that work earlier on. They can work within a region to promote their region, to understand better the consumers, and work together to understand, to do the research, and then they interpret the research in their own brands. Things are possible. Just be creative, as we have said. The tools exist. Look at adjacent industries. The brands that succeed are consumer-centric. They are not product-centric. So we need, we are consumers ourselves. We want product to fit our needs, to give us pleasure, and that we will feel good about them. So I think emotion is critical. As I said before, it's a whole package that we need to design, not just one aspect of it.
So we're going to finish here. Okay. Thank you very much for all of you to be here. Today was not about having all the answers. It was about creating connection. I hope you enjoy it. This conversation was made possible by Ladies in Wine and Rethinking the Wine Industry. Ladies in Wine is a platform created to bring people together, ideas and cultures through wine. What we hear today reminds us of something essential. The future of the wine is not only about quality or knowledge, but about meaning, about emotion, and shared experience. Thank you to you or our panelists of the day for your generosity, all your time, your insight, and thank you to everyone who joined us. This is not the end of the conversation, it is just the beginning. I hope you have a great year, and let's talk to you soon. Thank you very much for your time, really.